Hello everyone. It is Jackie with Pocket or Preschool, and tonight this Facebook Live is all about introducing centers at the beginning of the year and then managing center time the rest of the year, like all year long. Just some center management techniques, some strategies, helpful things to do, and why kind of we do all the things we do, right? So I first want to tell you a little bit about me. So I teach in a half-day preschool. It's an in-home preschool right now. I teach in my house, and I'm state licensed, and I can have up to 10 kids a day. Before this, I taught in a public school full day, had 18 kids a day, up to 25 on my roster, and I was in a public school. So these center time strategies and management tips, all the things that I'm going to tell you guys tonight, they worked both in my half-day classroom I have now, and then in my full-day classroom when I had 18 kiddos in my class. So it works for kind of all settings and all classrooms. And obviously, you're not going to love everything I tell you tonight, so take the bits and pieces that you love and use those things and ignore the rest, right? Which is what's great about teaching, right? You can keep what you want and ditch the rest. So hey guys, so in the comments, now that everybody has popped on, I want you to tell me how many centers do you have in your classroom. So I have 5, which you can see behind me. That's my center chart, which we'll talk a little more about in a little bit. But I want to tell me how many centers you have, because I'm always curious about that, and how it is in other classrooms and other parts of the country and other parts of the world. It's always interesting to see what everyone else is doing in their classrooms too. So I have 5 centers in my classroom, the magic 5. So I have art, and then I have in my art, and every one of my centers is color coded. So I have 5. So art, and that's where I have a lot of my Play-Doh and sensory, like ooey gooey sensory things, like messy sensory is an art too. So I have art, and then library, which that's where my writing table is, my bookshelf, and then all of my literacy and language games and activities. And then I have pretend, which is the pretend center, and my pretend center changes to different things based on our theme. So and next month we're going to change it to birthday party and apple orchard, so that'll be really fun. And then discovery is my math and science put together, and that's also where I have my sensory table. So I have a science shelf, a science table, and then a math shelf, and then I have a table in the middle of the center so they can pull out the activities and put them in the middle and play with them on the table. And then I also have the sensory table, and then I have the block center, so that's where all the blocks and a lot of my STEM things are. And I also have the dollhouse in my block center. I know some people put it in the library center, but I put my dollhouse in the block center. So yeah, so I see a lot of people have different amounts of center. So if you are just joining us, pop in the comments and tell us how many centers you have in your classroom. Like I have 5, I'm seeing like 8. The highest I've seen is 11, 6, 5. So, all right, so that's always fun. Okay, so I have 5 centers. And then at the beginning of the year, during center time, I don't just have like a free-for-all. Like they just don't go to, I don't say it's like center time and just go play. So what I do is I introduce each center at the beginning of the year. And at the top of this post, you'll find a link to this handy-dandy little introducing centers checklist, or I guess talking points more or less. So what I do is I teach each center, and we only play in that center, and then we switch. Halfway through center time, we only play in that center. That way we're really getting to know our centers, and they're getting to know what's in there, how to play with the materials appropriately, and they're just exploring things that they might not explore. Like if they're a kiddo who loves blocks, they're probably not going to go to the art center. But maybe if they find out what's in art and find out how much fun it is, then maybe they'll be more intrigued to go there later. So what I do is, like, let's say it's the first day of school and it's center time. So right now I only have 8 kids in my class. So I'll take all 8 kids and we'll go, I usually introduce blocks and pretend first, just because those are to the messiest centers that get the messiest, and to those are the most popular centers in my classroom. So I want them to play there on the first day. So I'll take my whole class and we'll go sit on the floor in the block center. And then halfway through we'll switch and we'll go to pretend. And I'll tell you what we do when we go to that center in a minute. But if you have 18 kiddos or you have more than 10 kiddos, and if you have 2 teachers, I would break it up. So I would take half the class, go to blocks, half the class, go to pretend, and then midway through center time, switch kids. And the pretend kids will go to blocks, and the blocks kids will go to pretend. That way, you know, obviously it's not manageable to have 18 kiddos in one center at a time. And it is really, really busy, I will say, with 8 kiddos in the center, but it's manageable, especially since it's that first 2 weeks when a lot of them are a little bit shy and timid. They're not, they're getting used to everything. They're kind of very calmer than they would normally be, right? Those first couple weeks, because they're just getting used to everything. So it's a lot of kids, but it's manageable again. So what we do is, let's say you are my class. I say, okay guys, so we're gonna go to the block center today. And everybody, let's go sit down in the middle of blocks. And we literally sit in a little circle in the middle of blocks. We all sit crisscross. And then I say, friends, this is the block center. Okay, of course I don't have that sign with me. Okay, let's just pretend like, yeah, it's fine. So we'll pretend like we're in Discovery. So let's say, oh, okay, friends, this is the Discovery Center. And in the Discovery Center, the picture for a Discovery is a magnifying glass. And the Discovery color is green. And if you're wondering what I'm saying all of these talking points on my cheat sheet. So I'm literally introducing the picture, the symbol, and the name of the center. And then kind of like that hickety pickety bumblebee, can you say a name for me? You know that song? So we kind of do that in each center. So I'll say, okay, this is the Discovery Center, and the symbol for Discovery is a magnifying glass, and it's the green center. Because that way they'll either remember the picture symbol or the color, or maybe they'll remember the word. Kind of depends on the kiddo, what type of learner they are, what they're gonna remember. So the Discovery Center has a symbol and has a color, which is why my centers are color coded, because we use clips, which I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. And then we literally, I'll say, let's say Discovery, ready? Discovery, and then we clap it. Discovery, and then we whisper it, Discovery, and then we shout it, Discovery, and they go crazy, of course. And you can do today we just tapped it different ways. We tapped our head, said it, tapped our shoulders, tapped our nose. You can kind of mix it up, but as long as they're kind of repeating that word, because what typical preschool age or kindergarten age child is going to be like, oh, that's the Discovery Center, or oh, that's art and blocks kind of makes sense. Library, that's kind of like if they go to the library, that'll make sense to them. But Discovery, that's an odd word for them, or that's probably a new vocabulary word. Pretend, or maybe you call it dramatic play. I call it pretend just because it's easier for the kiddos to remember. So I will call pretend. But if you want to call it dramatic play, you can absolutely call it dramatic play. It's whatever works for you and your kiddos. I actually tried calling it dramatic play one year and it bombed. Nobody ever remembered that it was called dramatic play. They called it pretend. So I changed it back to pretend, because sometimes you just got to try it, right? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nobody knows. So yeah, so I changed it back and we just call it pretend. And then if you can see my clip chart, so my pretend center has a house, because it's usually a house and it's blue. The Library Center, the picture is books. Art Center, and the picture is paint. Block Center is blocks. And then I have my clips to go with it, so it's color coded. Oh yeah, so we go to that center, we're all sitting on the floor, and then I say, well, what do you think you do in the Discovery Center? And luckily, I have some kiddos for 2 years, so my kiddos from last year will help me out and answer some of these questions. But if you have new kiddos, you can say, well, look on the shelf. What do you think we do in here? Oh, there's a magnifying glass. Who uses the magnifying glass? Oh, a scientist? Oh, so in the Discovery Center, you can be a scientist and examine things with the magnifying glass. And then look on the other shelf. Oh, there's dice. You can be a mathematician in the Discovery Center, and you can learn math, and you can do patterns, and you can play games. And we literally, and again, this printable that I just threw, it takes 5 minutes. And introducing centers is not my favorite thing. I'm really glad when it's over because it's kind of boring, especially if you've been teaching forever like I have. But it is so important because we just assume that kiddos are going to walk into our classroom and go, oh, that's the block center. I'm going to go play over there. And they literally don't. They haven't been exposed to the things that are in our classroom because hopefully the things in your classroom aren't at their house, right? Hopefully we have like fun and engaging science tools and things like that that they typically don't have at home. So we're going to pretend like I'm still with you guys in the Discovery Center. We just said the name, all the different ways. We looked on the shelf. And now my kiddos are getting up this whole time. They're trying to get up. They're trying to go get the things for me. And I said, oh, remember, we're going to glue our bottoms to the floor for just a couple minutes. And again, this is like 5 minutes, guys. Like it's super short because their attendance span is fast those first few weeks. So we talk about what's on the shelf, and then I say, if we get this stuff out, how am I going to know where to put it back? So I'm going to say, oh, look, on the end of these bins, look, there's a picture, and the picture matches what's inside. And I'll say, oh, look on the shelf. Who can point and does anybody see where these locks go? Oh, look, there's a picture. So this picture matches the picture on the shelf, and that's where it goes back. So that way now, we've talked about the center, we've talked about what things are on the shelf, and now we're talking about how to clean it up. Because I know my house, I mean, in an ideal world, it would be amazing. My house is not labeled for my kiddos to put stuff away. They just throw things on the shelf, right? Well, hopefully in your classroom, it's all labeled and organized. So that way they know, oh, that's what those pictures are for. Because a 3-year-old's not going to go, oh, I'm not going to match. They're not going to match the picture up automatically. So you just have to point out, oh, I know where that goes. And I can figure out where that goes by looking at the picture and then matching it on the shelf. And they're also matching, which is another math skill, as they're cleaning up. So you're teaching them the center name, the symbol, what's in the center, like the materials, and how to clean it up. And you're doing this in 5 minutes. And then after that 5 minutes is over, I say, okay, friends, we're all just gonna play in Discovery together, and you can get out anything in Discovery. And during this time, I'm playing with them, and you'll have some kiddos dump and then get something else and dump. So you'll be like, okay, let's clean this up first, and then put this back on the shelf, and then you can get a new thing out. So you're all also, during this little mini center time where your kiddos are just in that one center, you're teaching them how to clean up, how to put things away when they're done with it, not just dump everything on the table, which is so fun to do, right? But we teach them, get it out and then put it away, and then they can get something new out. If you see kids hitting or like let's say you're in blocks and they're doing this with the animals, right? They're like crashing them or something. Say, use those teachable moments and say, our animals, we're really gentle with them because we don't want to hurt them, and we don't want to smash our fingers or smash our friends' fingers. So if they're playing with the toys inappropriately, it's a perfect time to teach them how to play with those materials appropriately. So we introduce the center with the kiddos on the ground. We all play in that center, and then I turn on the cleanup music, and my cleanup music is just Kids Bop because it has a fast beat, and they clean up faster if there's a fast beat to the music. Because I don't know about you, but if there's a tempo on, like you move to that tempo just kind of naturally. If you have a slow cleanup song, change it to something faster. I use Kids Bop, and you have to be careful with some of the Kids Bop because some of it is a little bit inappropriate for preschool. But most of the Kids Bop's really fun. They sing it, they hear it on the radio and things. So they'll clean up, and then my reward for my kiddos is if the center is clean, they go help a friend in another center, and then they get to go dance on the carpet once their center's clean. So it's kind of like a reward if they get their center cleaned up. So then they practice cleaning up, and then everybody's dancing on the carpet, and then the song's over. And Annabelle says she uses Go Noodle for cleanup songs. I tried that once, and my kiddos watched the screen. So I have used Go Noodle before, but then I've had to like mute the screen or like pause it. You know what I mean? If you have a smart board, you know what I mean. You can like mute it, and it's just like frozen, but still all of the song is playing like throughout your classroom. So that's a good idea too. I say some other people are saying they use Go Noodle too for cleanup. So that's perfect because it's got that fast beat, right? And they'll move faster. So then we're all at the circle and we're dancing, we're having fun, and they're getting all their energy out before then they have to go sit and do another center. So my center block is about 50 minutes. So we take half of the center time. So we'll do 20 minutes. So 20 minutes in one center. So it's like 5 minutes of talking and then 15 minutes of playing. And then we dance and clean up, because sometimes it takes a little bit longer too, those first couple cleanup times, because some of the kiddos don't want to clean up, so it just takes a little bit longer. And then we just go to a different center, and then we do it again. I teach all the things about the center. We talk about it. Again, it's 5 minutes, super quick, and then they play in that center, turn the cleanup music on, and then they dance. So I do this for the first 10 days of school. And I want everybody to get to each center at least twice. Some of the centers 3 times maybe. So that way, and you'll know your kiddos. Like, you can tell if your kiddos know the center names, if they don't know the center names. So if you go, okay, what center do you guys want to go to today? Or what center should we play in? And they all say, oh, I want to go to pretend, and they point to your art center, then you still need to use those teachable moments. So yeah, so that's how I introduce centers, one way. Oh, so the first time I introduce centers, I do a longer intro. And the second time, let's say we've been to all the centers and we go to blocks for the second time, and we're all sitting on the carpet and we're going over everything as a review. I do it again, but it's just quicker. So the second time, it's maybe like 3 minutes. So yeah. Oh, and these signs, they're on a book ring, and I have them on command hooks, and they're on the end of each shelf for that center. So if I have a shelf that's kind of on the end, that way they know that this shelf is Discovery. So that way they're kind of labeled. So at the beginning of the year, they know where to play. I know some teachers have done before, they will take the top of that shelf and cover it in like green. Like if that's a Discovery Center, they'll put a green piece of paper over the whole top of the shelf. If your kiddos need extra, like some extra visual of what center is which. So Barbara's asking, do I only do one center a day at first? So for the first about 2 weeks, we only do 2 centers a day. And some of the kids are a little bit sad that, like, if they don't get to go to pretend every day. But I say, you know what? I will make sure we go to that center. You will go to that center first the next time. And I write myself a note so I don't forget. And then the next day I make sure and go to that center if somebody's super, super upset they didn't get to go to pretend or something. So for the first 2-ish weeks, maybe week and a half, or however many days that is, we just do 2 centers a day. And then after that, the kiddos get to pick their centers. So that kind of comes in to where these clips are. But I want to tell you another way I teach about the centers at Circle before I kind of go into the clip chart. So I forgot to put it in the links at the top. So you can grab my first 10 days of school lesson plans for free on my blog, pocketofpreschool.com. You can just search lesson plans and it'll pop up for you. But it'll map out how I introduce the centers. But I also use circle time to teach the centers. So for example, blocks is a really good one. So I read a book about the center during circle, and then we do some kind of anchor chart or some kind of like quick activity. So for the block center, I don't know if you guys know this book, but this book is amazing. Go grab it off Amazon. It's called When I Build with Blocks. It's about, it's kiddos in a classroom with wooden blocks on the shelf, and it talks about how they play in the block center every day. And then look, they use their blocks and they use their imagination and they build different things. So how cool is that, right? Like, it's showing them all the different things they can build. This page does scared one of my friends this year. So if you have kiddos who are scared of ghosts, skip this page. But yeah, so they build like racetracks and like all kinds of fun stuff. But I love it because it shows the kids building with blocks, and it's literally just like them in the block center. So this book is really good, When I Build with Blocks, or Dreaming Up. This is a newer book. This one is amazing. And I do keep these in the block center. This one is a little bit more abstract because it's a kiddo building with different things. And then they show the real version of it. And it's a great book. It's very diverse. It shows houses from different places. But these kiddos aren't just using blocks. So this one I usually read later in the year. I usually read this one first because it's very concrete, whereas this one is a little bit more abstract. But if you can't get your hands on this book, grab this one, because this one's really, really good too. Dreaming Up. And oh, look at this one. So this one she is building with blocks, but they build with all different kinds of things. And this is really good for STEM too. And then after we read When I Build with Blocks, we actually did this Monday. I think it was Monday. We make this anchor chart and then we put it in the block center. So this is from my I Can Build STEM pack on my TBT store. So my link to my TBT store is at the top of this post. But these are the little pictures, and I also have the big pictures in my block center, but we literally make the anchor chart together during circle time. So I'll say, what are some of the things that you like to build with blocks? And I literally have them spread out, and some of them look on the cards and they say, I build a robot, and then I put it up. But they'll say, I like to build rockets, or I live in St. Louis, so they always say the arch, and things like that. So then I put them up, and then I hang this in the block center. And then it's not just like wallpaper on the wall in my classroom, like it's something that they made, they helped do. So yeah, you can tell the corners falling off a little bit. It's fine. No worries. So yeah. So then they can use that as a reference if they want ideas to build. And what you'll see them do is they'll walk over to the chart, and even the little guys, even my young threes will walk over to the chart and they'll just look at it. Whereas my older kiddos, my older pre-K kiddos, they'll walk over the chart and they may talk with their friend, or they may kind of talk out loud like, I think I'm gonna build a skyscraper today. And it's a really great way too to build that vocabulary and give them ideas on what to build. So that anchor chart I keep in my classroom, I keep in the block center all year long. So that's how I introduce blocks for Circle. Today, we read I Ain't Gonna Paint No More, No More. This is a Scholastic book, which I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. Love this book. It's a cute book. It's a rhyming book. I want to say this one's on YouTube too. And it talks about this little, I don't know if this is a guy or a girl. Anyways, the little kiddo paints all the different parts of his body, which again, you're talking about body parts. But the moral of the story is, you want to talk about at the end what do you paint in the classroom? Do you paint you? Do you paint the wall? What do you paint? You paint the paper, right? So it's a great way to introduce paint, because the first week of school, I do not have paint at the easel. I read this book, we read it today, and then I literally take the whole class. And when I had 18 kiddos, I did take all of the 18 kids, they sat on the floor, and then I went over to the art easel. And this is free in my TBT store. It's the visual easel routine. You can tell it's usually taped up there. I just pulled it off. See? Paint. And I go through it and I actually do these things. So I'll say, when you go to the easel, here's what we do. We put on an art smock, and I put on the kid art smock, even though it doesn't fit. And they all laugh at me and think I'm silly. And then I model getting paper. I model writing my name. Even if they scribble it, that's perfect. Somebody said, will I put the books in this post later? And I will. I'll post these books in this later. And they're also in the, there's a blog post where you can grab these. The links for the books are in there too. They write their name, then they paint, and then they put it on the drying rack. So I model it, and then the day that we read this, I make sure the arts, and any of the days I read the book about a center, I make sure we go to that center as one of our 2 centers that day. That way they can play with and implement kind of some of the strategies or routines that I'm teaching during Circle. So that's how I introduce the art center. I have stuff all around me again. So for pretend, I either read Don't Wake Mama. It's like a 5 Little Monkeys book. I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but the 5 Little Monkeys Bake Mama a Cake. for her birthday, and they end up like burning it and the firemen come. But it's super, super cute. But it walks through how to make a cake. Because if you have watched little guys and little ladies go to pretend, they just dump everything on the table, right? They don't know how to pretend, so we have to teach them, because maybe they don't like, maybe their mom doesn't bake cakes, maybe their mom only cooks, or maybe their mom doesn't bake or cook, maybe they get takeout. So they don't know how to act it out if they don't see anyone doing it, which I'm not knocking it, because y'all, like, I don't cook. And not really. I hate cooking, so my kids don't see me cook very often. So I was probably one of those moms who their kiddos did not see them cook. So I'm not knocking the parents or grandparents if you don't cook. But you can teach them all the ways to cook by reading this book. And if you don't have Don't Wake Mama, Mr. Cookie Baker is another good one. It's by Mr. Cookie Baker by Monica Wellington. I tried to find it and my book is lost. I know, right? It's horrible. But I love Mr. Cookie Baker or Pizza at Sally's, because it literally goes through step by step. This one is on how to make a pizza. Oh, that's a bad example. It just models and it goes through how to make a pizza. But, so we read the book, Don't Wake Mama or Mr. Cookie Baker, and then I bring this to circle, or no. I bring this to circle and I literally model how to make a pretend cake. So I will say, can you tell I have this prepped because we're gonna do this on Friday. So I will say, okay, I have a bowl and now I need flour. So what do you have to do? Oh, you have to use your measuring spoons. And I model, you can be like 1, 2. I will put a list to the links. The blog post link that's at the top has a list of all of these books. But I will put the books in this after we're done. I literally go through and I model how to make the cake. And then, you dump in the cake mix. I'm just going really, really fast because it's you guys, and we stir it. And I model putting in the eggs. And this is just an empty egg carton. These are those like white eggs you get at Easter time. You can model like cracking them. And you can either pretend to make cookies or cupcakes. These are those wooden Melissa and Doug cookies. These are cupcakes I made with Model Magic. So I literally have the kiddos. I usually do this at the end of the year because they'll take like a week to dry. But you just take Model Magic or an air dry clay and you push it in the cupcake mold so that way they fit. The dough obviously shrinks a little bit. And then you have cupcakes. You can tell this one was cracked. It's hot glued. But yeah, you don't have to buy fancy. You don't have to buy these like Melissa and Doug fancy ones. Just make some with that that air dry clay. I'm sure you can go on like Pinterest and find it. I can't remember the recipe. Or Model Magic if you want to use that route too. But yeah, just make your own, and then like you can tell the kids painted it, and just I use glitter for sprinkles. And if they can also make cookies with air dry clay or Model Magic. How cute are these, you guys? They're chocolate chip. Can you tell? They look delicious, right? And then you can even model how you piece the cookie or the cupcake or whatever. And this is just an empty icing container, and I laminated the label. So yeah, super, super simple. But that way you're modeling how to make a cake, and you will be amazed at the difference in level of play and level of pretend that will happen if you model the steps on how to do it. Now, is a 3-year-old gonna do all those things in order? Nope. But your pre-K friend might, or maybe they were just dumping everything on the table before. Maybe now they'll actually dump everything in a bowl and then put the cupcakes in. But you know what? It's growth, and they'll get there. But you just gotta do baby steps, and you gotta do modeling. And I think we always forget to model how to pretend. Because we assume kiddos just know how to do it, and they don't. Especially with all the technology now. And parents and families are on technology when they get home too. So they're not playing with their kiddos as much. So we want to make sure we're modeling all those pretend things too. So that's how I do art, pretend. Let's talk about discovery. Okay. So in discovery, they probably have no idea how to use a magnifying glass, right? They probably hold it up to their face and it's adorable, right? They hold it up to their face and they have no idea how to use it, right? So I love this book. I use Science Tools. And it literally just goes through like super simple text, simple pictures on all the tools that scientists use. I use Science Tools by Kelly Hicks. I love this one. And then after we read that, because it's like 2 seconds, then we make this Parts of a Scientist chart. And this is a freebie on my blog in the, so I have a post for almost all the centers. This is in the Discovery Center post. But basically we just say, you know, what is a scientist? And they can be a boy or a girl. You can be anybody. Everyone can be scientists. And we talk about how scientists use their 5 senses. And this is, you can tell this is one from last year. What I literally do is, so I laminate my anchor charts and then I'll pull these off and then we'll make it the one for this year with these same pieces. That way I don't have to like recut and laminate, because I like to, what is it, work smarter, not harder. So that way I can just pull these off and we'll make our new one for this year. And then I just, obviously I do, what does it say? Like by eyes, it says like see, observe, notice, look. And we say, well, what do scientists use their ears for? Oh, they use it to listen. They use it to listen to their friends. Maybe you listen to a YouTube video, so you listen to research. So you do kind of give them a little bit of tips and tricks, but a lot of these are just their words I'm putting on there. So then I literally put this in the Discovery Center, because now this is something they've helped create, so now it's purposeful on the wall. Because I think we got to be careful that this stuff on the wall isn't just pretty, and it isn't just put up there, that it's something that the kids help make or that they know what it is, so it's not just wallpaper, right? Otherwise, they're going to ignore it. Because how many times do you go to the doctor's office? Do you even like notice what pictures are on the wall? You probably don't, because it's not meaningful to you. So it's the same in your classroom. If what's on your walls is not meaningful to your kiddos, they're not going to notice it either. So make sure you're putting that stuff on the walls that's meaningful for them. And obviously I like to be cutesy, hence my borders, but just make sure you have kids stuff and stuff kids help make on the walls too. Okay, so, this library. So I know a lot of people like to read Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. So if you have like a Chicka Chicka Boom Boom retelling, this is a great one to do. Lola at the Library, I love this one. And you can talk about how to kindly use books. So this one is great. Lola at the Library. How cute is that character, by the way? But what I use, I read Brown Bear to introduce library, because a lot of times in the Library Center, I always have a story they can retell. And I don't buy a lot of story kits. I cheat. So if you've watched me before, you know what I do. So I color copy the book and then I laminate it and put it a magnet on the back. So, right? So now I don't have to buy all these story cards. I don't have to find all the clip art. And if you guys, if they're not perfect, the kids don't care. Like the black sheep, like he's not whole, because I guess when I copied him, like I must have missed his back half. So it's not a big deal. And the kids don't care. Like this is children off of this page. And I just used it for my classroom, so I'm sure the authors don't care. But it's a great way to have story cards in your classroom, and you don't have to buy those expensive story kits, because buying the book's expensive enough and then you have to buy the story kit. But retellings are great, right? Because we know it builds reading comprehension, sense of story, all the things, right? Reading books over and over and over is amazing for kids, regardless of their age. So I always try and have retellings in library. So I want to teach them what these, so this is actually a little board that sits like right on the other side of this little writing chart. And I always have my retelling cards up there. So I read the book, we all retell it together, and then I literally, while the kids are watching me, since my library center is part of my circle, I just go slap these up there, and my book always sits here, and I say, oh, in library, you can retell a story, and you can pretend to be the teacher. So that's how I kind of introduce story retelling. And again, some people like Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, because they make those trees with those, like, what is it? People make them with, use like what, like a metal, those metal cans, and then spray paint it brown, and you can get the leaves from Dollar Tree. So you can do that. Put that in your library center, so that way they're retelling books. But so that's what I do to introduce the library center. And Lola at the Library is another really, really good one to do. For library, so like I said, my Discovery Center has math and science together, but I don't want to forget about math. So I read Pete the Cat and his Groovy Buttons, because it's a subtraction book, right? So I say, oh, you know what? Pete the Cat loves math, and he loves the Discovery Center. So what are some things in our Discovery Center that help us count like Pete the Cat? And I basically just bring a couple things over with me to circle, and I say, oh, we have cubes. We can count cubes. We can make patterns with them. Or maybe if you have buttons, you can put buttons in your center when you're reading this book. So I read basically any counting book would work that you have in your classroom to introduce your math center, or I just say my Discovery Center. So I read a science book and I read a math book to introduce my Discovery Center. And then I talk about how pom-poms are math, and I introduce what a dice is and how they can roll the dice, and they can count out that many and put them in a tray or play a path game. So that way they know when they're counting, they're being like Pete the Cat and they're doing math in the Discovery Center. So that's kind of how I introduce all the centers. And then let me tell you about, so after that first, week and a half, first 2 weeks after we introduce everything. So after that, I let the kiddos pick where they want to go. And so I'll say, okay, it's center time. You guys have to pick where you want to go. And they have to tell me like, oh, I want to go to library today. And then I also let them give them a little minute to like talk with their friends. That way, if like two friends want to go to library together, I say, oh, if you want to go to a center with a friend, they usually just hold hands and they like hold them up in the air. And I say, oh, like, what is it? Like Malia and Savannah, where do you guys want to go? Oh, you guys want to go to art together? Oh, have fun in art. And they come up and they pick their art clip off and they clip it to the bottom of their shirt. And then they go to that center. And then why I use clips, well, we did this in the school district I worked in. We used necklaces too, but I did not like those. I didn't like the necklaces. Personal preference. I know some people do use necklaces, but I just noticed that they got tangled a lot and it was frustrating for the kiddos. So clothespins are great. Now some kids don't know how to use clothespins, so you have to teach them how to use clothespins and they just clip them to their shirt. But why I like it that they clip them to their shirt, because it's a visual reminder for them what center they are, because 3-year-olds wander around the classroom. It's just part of development. They're more of an onlooker during play. They're not really into play yet with friends. They're more of like an onlooker, or they're in that parallel play. So if they have an art clip on and all of a sudden they walk over to pretend, I'll be like, oh, look, you have the red clip. You're supposed to be in art. And they can go, oh, I don't want to be in art anymore. I'll say, oh, go switch your clip. And then they can go back over to the center board, put this on, and then grab the pretend clip, and then they can go to pretend. And I let my kiddos switch as much as they want. I always, like for my older kiddos, I'll say, oh, you know what? You just got to art. Are you sure you don't want to go make anything else? Or do you want to do did you want to do the Play-Doh tray? Or did you see that this new activity is out, or whatever it is? And that way you try and like extend their attention span a little bit. Or I'll say, oh, can you go make another art choice? Because I'm just happy that they're playing in the center longer, because I don't want them switching. They will at the beginning just because there's so many things. They want to do everything. But once they really get into your classroom, they'll stay in the centers longer because they'll kind of know where everything is and they'll have played with everything. So it's not like that new exciting kind of wears off, which is good and bad, right? Somebody's asking about how I paint them. So there's actually in the blog post that's linked at the top, I actually spray paint them. So I clip them on like a box, and then I spray paint them. And they will last you forever as long as they don't break. And I buy the clothespins at like Walmart, and then I spray paint them. And you can usually find like cheaper spray paint. Like I think like Walmart has like dollar spray paint for like red, green, and blue. I think the orange and yellow, you have to buy like the $2 cans or something. But they have like $1 spray paint at Walmart. I'm all about cheap and easy. I tried painting them one year, I didn't paint them one year. One of my amazing assistants painted them one year, and it took her forever. And oh, God love her. Like it was a pain for her to do. Like I'm sure was not really excited to do them, but she did them, and they looked amazing when they were done. But it took forever. It's quicker to spray paint them, but just wear gloves, otherwise you'll have very colorful hands. You can dye them, and I know you can buy them, like at Michael's, they have like a bag of dyed clothespins. You can do those too. So yeah. So I usually do five. So I have a bigger classroom, so I do 5 clips per center. Looks like I'm missing an art clip. So I do 5 clips per center. You do what works for your classroom. Maybe you do 6, maybe you can only do 4. You do what works for you and your kids. So I did 5 clips per center when I had 18 kiddos. Sometimes that was tricky because a lot of the clips would get taken. So I did 6 sometimes, 6 clips per center. That way some of them were gone by the time they got to them, but not all of them. The kiddos pick where they want to go, and they go play there. They can switch when they want to. And I don't make them go to any centers. So I know that's a question I see popping up. It says, do you make your kids go to a center? Do they have required ones? And they don't. They literally pick where they want to go, and they go play there. Because now if a kiddo is let's say a kiddo is going to blocks every day and they're not switching, what I will do is you can pick them closer to last, because hopefully maybe those clips will be gone, and it'll just kind of be like a natural consequence, or just kind of oh no, the block clips are gone, and then they have to pick another center. And kiddos do get a little bit upset if at the beginning, or maybe there's something they really, really, really want to go do in that center, they do get a little bit upset, but it's just it's kind of like that teachable moment, right? You can't always get what you want first, but you know what? When a friend puts one back up, I will let you know, and you can switch then, because we all know kids switch centers, especially if you let them switch like this, or however management system you have. I do this also too, because my 3-year-olds and some of my pre-K kiddos don't recognize their name yet. So rather than having a giant chart with everybody's names, that's very overwhelming, I think this is easier. And the clips also give them a visual reminder for you and for them of where they are too. So let's say they go to blocks every day, and picking them last doesn't work. What you can do is, one, find out what their interests are, and maybe say, you know what, there's things you can build within the Discovery Center. Can we go there together today? I would really love to play with you today. Can we go to Discovery and build with the tubes today? Would you go there with me? So you can try something like that. Maybe if they love blocks, try and put some kind of block, maybe paint with blocks in the Art Center. Maybe put some kind of block book retelling in the Library Center. So try and take what they're interested in and try and put it in other centers. Or maybe have maybe they love construction. I don't know if you guys have seen, I put letters on a piece of cardboard, a thicker cardboard, and then they hammer, with golf tees, they hammer the letters. So maybe put something construction-y in the Library Center that has to do with letters to kind of get them away from the center that they love. So yeah. So Megan says, we have 20 kiddos. Any suggestions when allowing them to pick their clips so it's not mass chaos? So when I had my full day classroom and we had 18 kiddos, what we did was we took the clips and we divided the group in half. So half the kids would come with me, half the kiddos would go with another teacher, and we would pick clips that way. So that way I would have 3 of each center, she would have 3 clips of each center, and then they would pick that way. And you can either make mini center boards, or you can just cut this off so it's just the pretend center, a Discovery Center. So it's just 5 little cards instead, and it's really easy to transport that way. And you can just do that at night, as part of your closing routine to set up the small center clips, and get those ready. So that way when say, oh, it's center time, you know, if, and you can just call out your list and say, okay, these friends go see, you know, Miss Josephine, and you guys are going to pick centers with her. And once they get into a routine too of going to having to another place, or maybe like my, when I taught full day, they went to the back table and they picked clips with the other teacher. It was very natural once they got used to that transition, because they also usually didn't like dilly-dally, because they really wanted their clips and they really wanted to go play. So it's not like, you know, you're not having them do worksheets or anything. Like, so they were like, oh, if I go here quick, I get my center and I can go play. So yeah, so you can just make like mini charts and have the clips on those and pick. I would just divide it up in two, and do it that way if you have two teachers. So Rose, I think, sorry, it flipped up on me. So Rose says, do I do small group work during center? So sometimes I do small groups during centers. I will pull kids during centers, and I will do small group during center time, especially if it's like ability based, since I am in my classroom now by myself. When I had two teachers in my classroom, me and another teacher, we did small group separately. We had it at a separate time every day because it was easier to differentiate. Like if we had ability grouping, I could take all the high kids and she could take the low kids, and we could do it that way. And it was just easier since we had two teachers. Or, you know, if we were doing a small group by interest, these kiddos could come with me, those kiddos could go with her, and we did it that way. But now that I'm in a classroom by myself, I do small groups. Sometimes I do pull them, like, so I can do 3 kiddos at a time for small group, and then they'll go back to centers. But then that does make center time longer, because now I'm pushing that small group time in with center time. And my small group time is right now on my schedule, it's right after center time. So it's no big deal if I push in for centers. And if that works sometimes, and it doesn't, because sometimes kiddos will be like, no, I don't want to do small group right now because they'll be having so much fun. And I'll say, okay, I'll call you up next. And that, you know, and that way I kind of give them a warning. And they know too that once I pull them, they get to go back to their center. Like they don't have, if I pull them for small group during centers, they get to keep their clip on. They don't lose it. So they'll be with me during small group, and then they get to go back to the center they were in. They don't have to put it back on the board. So that helps too. And if you also, I forgot about this, if you have a kiddo who doesn't get the clip they want, write a note and have them sit there with you. So I will like literally take a piece of paper and say, okay, I'm writing a note, and then I literally will put it wherever the board is, or maybe stick it like by my center chart. And I'll put like, apparently Josephine is my name of the night. I'll put Josephine wants to pick first tomorrow. And usually that little note, and she sees me writing it, and I remember tomorrow too. And, you know, like follow through, like I'm consistent with that. That way she knows she'll get picked, even though she didn't get what she wanted today, she'll be able to pick first the next time she comes to school. So that'll usually help too. Sorry, they're going really fast. If you have a question that I didn't answer, put it back in and I'll try. So what are my other kiddos doing so during center time, everyone is in centers. And then if I have to pull for small group, the other kiddos stay in centers, and I'm pulling for small group. However, when I pull for small group and there's chaos during centers, it doesn't work. So the only way I can pull for small group is if obviously we're having a good day, and my kiddos are ready for that. Like they are able to self-regulate and manage themselves and switch clips and do all of that independently. So sometimes I can't pull for small group during center time for a while. So yeah. So if your kiddos can't manage center time by themselves, you probably don't want to do small group during center time. You want to do small group separate. How long is my small group? Someone is asking. My small group is between 15 and 20 minutes. Do I ever have to change the amount of kiddos allowed in a center? No. So I usually always have the same amount. That way it's consistent for them too, because some of the kiddos will notice, they'll be like, oh my gosh, there's 7 kiddos in Discovery, and they'll count and they'll be like, we have too many, or there's too many kids. So I always keep it the same. So there's always 5, so that way they know and I know. And then too, if they're wearing the clip, it's really easy to know who doesn't belong in that center. So you can be like, oh, Josephine and Savannah, you guys don't have a green discovery clip. Come on, let's go back to the board and pick something out. So yeah. So sometimes, as you guys know, I change pretend, and sometimes my pretend center is closed. So if you ever have to like close a center, what I do is I just take all those clips away, and I'll say, oh, you know what, today the pretend center is closed, and so you'll have to pick a different center. And obviously that works for me since I have less kiddos. But you can also, like, if you have to close a center for some reason, you can also say, oh, so the other centers today are going to have 6 clips or 6 kids each or something like that. So that would be the only time I would change if I would have to close a center. And this also works. Closing centers also works if you notice your kiddos are stuck and they're always going to one center. You can say, you know what, we're going to close blocks today because I put out new stuff in the other centers and I really want you guys to try it out first. So yeah. So Kate says, what do I do during small groups? I have a whole blog post on that, so I will link that after this is done. So I see some people asking, do I have kiddos clean up before they switch centers? And I do. I try, so during center time, if I'm not pulling for a small group, so during center time, I am playing with them. And when I taught full day, there was 2 of us. So 2 of us were playing with them. So we could observe and notice, like let's say you notice that somebody's changing clips, just glance over at the center they were in and say, oh, you know what, Josephine, you forgot to clean up blocks. Here, let me come help you. Or hey, Josephine, you forgot to clean up blocks. Do you need help? Or you got it. Because I've found that when they're changing clips and they haven't cleaned up, and you ask them to clean up, it's a really easy way for them to kind of go crazy or get upset or get angry or just to be overwhelmed because maybe they didn't clean up because they got too much out or they don't know where it goes or it's overwhelming for them. So I always say, hey, do you want me to help you or do you need some help kind of with the correction that they need to clean up. That way, if they are worried or anxious, they'll automatically kind of feel at ease. When I say, oh, I can come help you. So that kind of avoids a behavior by noticing or guessing kind of at why they might be changing centers without cleaning up. Or they're just 3 and they forgot because 3-year-olds are just 3. Then they forget all the things. So Maria is asking, can I explain how I do rotations? And I don't do rotations. Actually, I let the kiddos pick where they want to go every day. So they get to pick where they want to go and they get to stay there the whole time if they want. So I know some people are like, oh, I make them change after, some teachers make your kiddos change after like 30 minutes. And I don't because I believe, and research tells us that if kiddos are doing something and they're invested in what they're doing, they're going to play with it for a longer period of time. So if they're engaged with something and they're invested in something, I don't want to cut that off. I don't want to cut off their thinking, their learning, because I'm going to cut off whatever they're doing. I'm also going to cut off any higher level that could be coming because the longer you do something, the higher level skills they're working out, and you're also cutting their attention span. So, or not letting that attention span develop. So, if a kiddo wants to play in the sensory table for 50 minutes, they absolutely can. And that's actually one of my goals for the end of the year, is for the end of the year, like no one is changing centers, really. Obviously, since I have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, my 3-year-olds are obviously still going to be changing. My pre-K kiddos, my goal is for them not to be changing every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes. My goal would be for them to find something, get engaged with it, and play for a long period of time to increase that attention span. One thing is too, so let's say blocks or pretend, because those are the centers that get to be a hot mess, right? Like a big, huge mess, and you turn the clean up music on and the kids like immediately run out of that center to go dance. But that happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you. So I will, like, when I go around and I have a 5-minute helper, or I do it, and I'll say, if we have 5 more minutes left of center time, I will go around and look and see if there's anywhere that is a giant mess, or maybe they have everything out. Maybe it's not a mess, but they have just used all the supplies off the block shelf. I'll say, you know what, you guys, how about you guys have about 2 more minutes, and then in 2 more minutes, we're gonna clean up early. That way, and I'm gonna help you. That way, when it's cleanup time, you'll get a little bit of time to dance. So if you notice, pretend they have everything out, or if they have everything out in blocks, have them clean up a couple minutes early, and you be over there to help them, or another teacher be over there to help them. So that way, since they have everything out, they don't get overwhelmed and kind of like panic when the cleanup music's on. So that way they have half of the stuff put away. The cleanup music comes on and they're like, oh, this is doable. Like, I'm not overwhelmed. I can do this. Let's go. Let's clean up so I have time to dance. So that is one way I do kind of help with cleanup. And I clean up too. When it's cleanup time, I am not prepping for something else. I am helping them clean up. I am praising. I am doing pivot praise, which is praising the person next to the person who's not doing what you want them to do. So you can praise Josephine. Maybe Savannah's not doing what she needs to. Like, oh, wow, Josephine, I love how you're putting those marker caps on. Thanks, bud. Thanks for taking care of our classroom. Or thanks for making a green choice. And Savannah will be like, oh, I want Miss Jackie to praise me too. So she'll start cleaning up too. So that's pivot praise, when you praise the person next to them. Or I can, like, you have those kiddos who just stand there like frozen statues during cleanup. I will have them, I'll be like, oh, do you want to clean up the triangle blocks or the circle blocks? So I'll give them a choice, because maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they don't know where something goes. Or so I just give them a choice. Say, oh, do you want to clean up the baby doll stuff or the food or the pretend food? And they'll go, oh, the baby dolls. They'll go, okay, great. I'm going to clean up the food. And so that way they have something specific to do so they can focus on that. So that helps too, another way to get kiddos to clean up. There are 5 kids in a center and one wants to move to another center. How would you have, I'm guessing it says, how would you have them clean up? I can't see her whole question. So let's say one kiddo wants to leave that center and everybody else wants to keep playing. I'll say, and this happens a lot too in pretend, or in blocks, because if they're in like library or art, they usually kind of have their own activity they're playing with. But if they're in pretend or if they're in blocks, they're usually kind of playing as a group. Or maybe there's nothing that specifically they're playing with. I'll say, oh, can you clean up 5 blocks? Or, oh, can you clean up 5 things and pretend? And then switch. So that way they don't have to, like, they're not stopping everyone else's play because they're just one kiddo is leaving. But yet they're cleaning up something, so they're not leaving her with the mess. Or maybe all of their friends are building a giant castle in blocks. I'll say, hey, is it, you know, Josephine is going to change centers. Come get her when you guys want to clean up, and then have her come back. That way they don't have to stop play, but yet she can come back to help them clean up. Yeah, so that's what I do a lot when it's blocks. So have that person come back when, they're during cleanup time, say blah, blah, blah. So when the music comes on, say, oh, Josephine, remember you were going to go help them clean up that castle in blocks. So when you're done cleaning up the markers, don't forget to go help them clean up that castle. So yeah. And some of these are going so fast, I'm missing them. I don't have a sensory center. I know somebody asked if I have a sensory center. So all of my messy sensory, like oobleck and Play-Doh and slime, all of that I put in art because it's easier to contain the mess. And then anything, like my sensory table is in discovery. So I kind of divide it up, and that also gives kiddos two different opportunities for sensory play, because if kiddos are craving sensory, they're gonna find it in your classroom. So that way I kind of divide it up in 2 places. That way if they're craving sensory and they need it, there's Play-Doh or sensory materials in art, and there's a sensory table in discovery, so there's 2 opportunities in the classroom. If I just have a writing center, so my writing table, which is right behind me, my bookshelf and my retelling chart and my shelf with like literacy letters and letter locks and letter puzzles, all of that is lumped together in my library center. So again, I have just those 5 centers, and I do have a blog post on each center except for library. That's on my to-do list. So I have a blog post all about the art center, a blog post all about dramatic play, all about art, all about discovery, and I'll link those in when we're done. So I just have those 5 centers, and I found too when I have, when like I kind of have them lumped together, there's more choices in the center, so they're more likely to play with one thing and then get something else out that's next to it. And so they'll stay in that center longer and kind of build that self-regulation and build that attention span, since maybe they're going to play with letter locks and then they're going to do the writing table and then they'll switch centers. So yeah. So Amber says, can I show you my retelling shelf? So this is it's actually not a shelf, sorry. It's literally just this board, and then I put oops, sorry. So I will just have the book at the bottom, and then I just have the cards that are on magnets on there, and sometimes they like get stuck in the bottom little shelf. But this is from Lakeshore, and I have one side that faces library and the other side faces art, and I actually have their name tags on the other side, so that way if they are making a picture in art, they can real quickly grab their name tag and help that if they want that as a help to write their name as a model. So yeah, so this is I call it my retelling shelf, but it's really just like a little whiteboard, and it's only, here's the top of it. So the top of it's like another like inch above the screen. So yeah, and it's just from Lakeshore. And everybody that gets it loves this thing. It's amazing. You can put like magnets on it. And I do a lot of, like, again, my retelling cards on it, but I just use, you know that magnet tape you can buy off Amazon? You can tell I used to use these on a felt board because it has Velcro. I've had them a while. You can also put like name cards on here, like vocabulary cards, like word cards, and have them spell it out with, you can't see it, with letters. Yeah, and I always have letters at the bottom of it too, just because gotta have letters everywhere you possibly can, right? All right. So, and somebody asked how long my center time is. So my center time is 50 minutes with cleanup. So it's usually around 45 minutes, and then I leave 5 minutes for cleanup. And if you go over to my blog, I do have my entire schedule over there. Just search schedule in the search bar. So yeah, so I hope that answered some of your questions about center time and center management. And again, make sure, if you haven't, like let's say you're in week 2 and your kiddos, you didn't introduce centers and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could redo this year. Like, you don't have to like wait until next year to introduce your center. So just do it at the beginning. You can use these books, like I showed at the beginning of this Facebook Live. Read a book, and then just have the whole class walk over the center and do the chant. If they don't know the names, or just say, hey, you know what? Let's take some time and learn about our centers, and just for a week, don't do like a free-for-all center time with clips. Just teach them the center names, and it's totally fine to go back and reteach. I think sometimes we think once we start doing things and we shouldn't have to go back and redo things, but it's just kind of like with behavior, right? Like, just if you have all of a sudden all your friends are not sharing, you're gonna have to do some small groups and some circle time books and things like that on sharing. So it's totally okay to go back and reteach about centers too. Or maybe maybe nobody's playing in the Discovery Center, and maybe read some books about Discovery and things they can do over there, and introduce some games and use them at small group. So I hope that answers all your questions. Don't forget to go to the blog post, grab the freebie. So yeah, you guys have an amazing night. See you later.